pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brew? Here. Mr. Babalani?
Here.
Dr. Hayes?
Here.
Mr. Meneghini?
Here.
Mr. Pop?
Here. Need to approve the agenda. Any additions to the agenda? Otherwise, we need a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion we approve the agenda that was handed to us with the 17 items on it.
Support.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Meneghini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of October 2nd, 2017. Any additions or corrections?
I have a correction. On approval 17-255 Sturgeon Falls Hydro Runner Replacement Project, the amount is not right in there.
I got one on the bottom. Doc, you should be signing the minutes and not Lee.
What's the correct amount?
Trish, do you have the correct amount? You got $1,774,910. I'm sure it's got to be 3 million something. I don't know. I can't remember the exact. You can go back.
I can find it.
Well, yeah, because it's in our last packet. Look back in there.
With those two corrections, you want to make a motion to pass the minutes?
Yes. With the two corrections, I make a motion to pass the minutes of the regular meeting of October 2nd, 2017. Support.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Meneghini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Approval of manifest 2017-20 in the amount of $387,392.39. Mr. Meneghini, any corrections or questions?
Just a comment here. I see our surplus power sales for September was $25,457, which is very good. And the other comment here, Ray, we had 20 employees that took this safety. That's just quarterly, right? October, November, December?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, now, is that everybody that's going to take it, or do we have more involved in that?
That's everybody that's charged for the safety program.
Okay, so there's nothing up here for it? Nobody up? Okay, that's all I have.
I had the same question some of the same questions Lee had. I see that the safety stuff is municipal electric utility. I thought we had a safety instructor for procedures and stuff. That's already on our payroll. Doesn't he take care of this?
He's a contractor through the Michigan Electric Utilities of Wisconsin. That's a contract that we approved earlier this year. That's coming up in December. We were going to have that come back to council in December.
But he's our safety rep, right, that discusses the procedures and that, and he's already on our payroll, so why
He's
are
not
we
on
paying?
he's not on our payroll. He's a contractor. We contract with the MEUW for his services, and we're one of 5 municipalities that he goes to see. So he sees us 4 to 5 days a month. He goes to Gladstone, Crystal Falls, Florence, and Eagle River, and Stevenson.
But we're still paying him.
We're paying the MEUW, and MEUW pays him.
So so we're paying MEW, and he's doing some of the procedures, so why doesn't he do our safety program?
He is working on our safety program. When he comes here, he works on our safety program.
But he won't teach the employees, or he's not qualified, or?
He does safety training. He does both. We have classes, and he works with the safety committee on our procedures.
But I guess I don't get it. We're already paying for that, and then this is an additional $7,400. I know,
That's our
I hear
quarterly
what you're
payment, isn't
saying.
it? Or is that the,
That's the payment for him, Mark.
Oh, that is the
We
payment
don't
for
pay
him.
him direct.
no, we don't pay
He's
him.
an employee of MEUW, So we pay them under a contract we have with them, and they pay him. We don't pay him direct for anything.
Okay, it's confusing the way it's listed here then.
Yeah, it's just
That
broke
it's
down.
the electric utilities.
No, it's
Okay.
broke down over all the departments.
Okay,
That's just the name of the group, the organization.
okay. On the third page, Ray, the straw and stuff, that was $270. What do you do with that straw when it's done here? That was for the Leif Erikson Day? Is that, must have been a substantial
The corn-
amount. Do
the
we
corn
keep that
stalks?
dry for seeding in the summer, or if we have to do any work along the roads? It's on page 3, halfway down, $270.
Corn stalks and straw bales. That's something that the DDA, or not the DDA, but the Leif Erikson Committee purchases through their donations. And then, I mean, we could save it, sure.
I mean, I'm thinking the straw would be good. It sounds like it's
Yeah.
a substantial amount of bales. I mean, if we're doing any street projects and we need
Most of that's
something for-
probably the corn stalks. But we can,
Okay.
when we remove them, we can see if it's worthwhile using somewhere else.
That's all I got.
Candy?
I have nothing on that.
Mr. Pop?
Doc, I got one more item I missed here. Just to make a comment, going back to Leif Erikson, I see the Mountain Host Motor Inn put up rooms for the Viking reenactors, and it's just a shame that we don't have a motel in Norway where we could put them up here. Hopefully somebody will step up and purchase the American or Norwegian, whatever it's called now.
Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, we need a motion to approve the manifest.
I make a motion, we approve manifest 2017-20 in the amount of $378,392.39.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes?
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes. Anybody in the audience like to comment on any agenda item except for the public hearing? We'll do that under the public hearing. Otherwise, you have a chance at the end of the council meeting to make comments on any topic. Next, you need a motion to go into
I'm trying
a
to.
public hearing, traffic control order, all street parking.
I make the motion for going to public hearing.
Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
We're here to discuss parking on Walnut Street. There's a proposal to turn Walnut Street into a major street, which is too narrow then for parking on both sides. Maybe Mr. Anderson can explain about this.
Yeah, I was asked to actually look into this a number of years ago. When we went forward, we provided paperwork to the Department of Transportation. We put together the resolution. I'd have to say it had to be maybe even 4 years ago. And they came up, did the audit, and they, when you're transferring a local street designation to a major street designation, there are minimum street widths for parking, no parking, for traffic control. Now, one of the issues that we run into, and I'm not quite sure why Walnut was never previously labeled a major street, back when they designated our street system. I mean, it's always been a major route to the school. We are also now into a new classification under the federal task force where we're in what they call a small urban designation, and by being in a small urban designation as opposed to, we were always in what they call a rural task force, which is communities under a certain size. We have very limited streets that qualified for federal funding, federal grant funding. Under small urban, we have actually more streets that are eligible, and going to and from school is a major component. We do need to, in order to qualify, initially have it as a major street. The other component of that is the type of tax, or the type of road monies that we receive on an annual basis for maintaining a major street versus a local street. I gave you a lot of information in your packet that I have to work with as a street administrator. I also need to fill out those forms. I bring them to the council on an annual basis for if we're going to make these street changes, approving what they call their Act 51 map. So we've talked about different streets that now classify and possibly make the change. One of the, to talk about the designations on Walnut, Walnut is currently a 31-foot wide curb to curb, inside a curb to inside a curb. The minimum for a two-sided parking is 38 feet. So in order for us to have parking on both sides and call it a major street qualify, we'd have to take 7 feet, add 7 feet to the street. That's virtually impossible to do, splitting up both sides. There's some topographical issues, contours, that through maybe a block, maybe a little more than a block or a little less than a block, where we just can't add anything to that side of the street. So all 7 feet would have to come on the west side, which is a major project. I mean, basically all of the trees would come down, and that would be a very big project, but that is an option. One of the options we talked about at the last meeting, and council's recommendation was to proceed with a public hearing, get the residents' comments through a public hearing on limiting parking to one side. If we do that, the minimum width is 28 feet, so we're well within that. Be similar to what we have on Section Street. When we repaved Section, we decided for the same reasons to limit it to one-sided parking. But we sent letters to the homes that are along those blocks in Walnut, and so I guess now I'll just open up to your comments or to the public comments. You can ask or hear from the public and ask questions.
Anybody else in the council have any comments at this time? Let's open it up to the public. Anybody who would like to make some comment, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and make your comments.
Hi, Michelle Beecher, 509 Walnut Street. We have a huge issue with parking. I used to have a boulevard parking when I first moved in. That was taken out when the sidewalks were redone a couple of years ago. So now all I have is off-alley parking. And Mark knows, he's got a residence right behind me. She also only has off-alley parking. I have a single garage, and my husband has a truck, which we've had to squeeze in between the tree line and the garage. His poor resident, if she has company, if she has anything which she is more than entitled to over there, we've had this conversation a few times, Mark, I can't get out of my garage. I've been over there knocking at her door 10:30 at night because I do work midnight shift. My husband's just kind of had a park willy-nilly, and during the summer is my favorite time of year because I can park out in front of my house. So to alleviate some of that congestion we have in the back area. Now, if you guys move that, you know, my neighbor across the street has a truck and a trailer, he does construction. My other two people across the street, they both have vehicles. So am I gonna have to park a block away in order to park outside? You know, and I'm also an EMT for North Alert. So if I have a call in the middle of the night, am I gonna have to jog a block away to get to my vehicle during the summer? You know, and another thing is on Walnut Street, there's no stop signs, there's no yield signs, there's no nothing on that stretch of road. I've had a huge problem with people speeding down that road, huge problem. Matter of fact, I just talked to Tom Menard a couple weeks ago about another resident further down the road that we had an issue with. And it's all summer. You know, even the kids, when they leave the school at noon, they come flying down that road like it's the Autobahn. You know, when we park on both sides of the street, it causes people to have to slow down. If there's another vehicle coming, they don't have a choice. I would like to see maybe a yield sign put up, maybe on 6th and Walnut or something, to at least, the roads were bad. We all know that, and now that they're fixing them, I just have a feeling it's gonna get worse. My poor neighbor, he just got custody of his 3 grandchildren, and 2 of them are special needs. If they're out playing in the front yard and a ball bounces out in the yard, are out in the street. I'm just afraid one of them's gonna get hit. But as far as the parking issue, I mean, I loved it when I had that boulevard parking, because then we didn't have any issues. But now we don't have that anymore, and if you guys move that all to the east side of the street, it's just gonna be a congested mess for us for work, and, you know, I can't even have any company now as it is, because I don't have, and my sister was to come for the holidays, and it's winter out, they got the winter van out, I have nowhere for them to park. And I did have, they came just this last year, and I got a ticket for them parking out front. There was no snow, no nothing, and I even called dispatch to let them know they were gonna be out there, and they got a ticket. So, yeah, this is, I hope you guys take this into consideration, because this is a huge issue we have over there. Mark's familiar with that back alley area, and then you have the apartment in the corner, they have all their own parking also in the alley. So we do a lot through the alley. So, yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any comments?
Michelle's my neighbor, but I don't want the parking lot to be on their side.
You can put on my side.
I mean, I want the parking to be on my side, and I understand what she goes through, because we have alley access too. I don't park a lot on the road, but it's, if anybody's in the way, you can't get out of your garage. And she has that problem. We all do. And I just don't think it's fair to say I can't park in front of my house or she can't either. I understand the congestion, but how would you like to not be able to park in front of your house? You know, I unload my groceries through the front door because we have steps coming down from the alley, and I have bad knees, and my husband's had surgeries, and he can come in the front door a lot easier because there's only a little step. And I wish that we wouldn't have to do it at all. But I don't want to be in competition with my neighbor, because I understand her position too. And the kids racing down the street has been a problem since my kids were this high. And so if we're doing it because the school's there, if that's part of the reason, we have to put up with a lot living by the school. So I don't understand why the school can't, if the bus has got to slow down to get through our block. You know, we have litter, we have speeding, we have swearing kids walking by the house. It's not fun to live by the school. So I really hope that I want parking on my side of the street. And like, if I ever sell my house, how can I sell it and say, oh, you know, you can't park in front of it, but here's a beautiful house. I just think you should put yourselves in our position. How would you like to not be able to park in front of your house? And my daughter comes home from downstate, and, you know, we have no parking but in front of the house when she's there, because I have a vehicle, my husband has a vehicle, and I don't want her to have to park across the street. And I wish there was some way to resolve it where you wouldn't have to do it at all, because I don't want to be in competition with my neighbor. I want parking in front of my house, which is across from mine.
I think your parking is going to be on the east side of the street. Correct. The parking would be available on the east side of the street.
Well, that hasn't been decided yet. Nothing's been decided. That was just, this is where getting public input.
That's what's proposed, though, is that it would be on the east side of the street, correct?
That's what you guys mentioned at the last meeting. I think, Mark, is that what you wanted?
That's what was proposed, yes. I think the other thing that was looked at, Anna, was the other main trunk line to the school would be Section Street, and that was converted years back, and that seemed to work out well. And then Saginaw Street going to Holy Spirit School, the main trunk line is parked on one side of the road to free up, and that seemed to work well. So I think that's why it was being looked at, is because the buses have to stop, and it is a main trunk line, and it's too bad that, I know not for use, but if it was transferred a while ago, that street probably would have been fixed a long time ago, because we would have got some funding for it. But that's why we got the hearing tonight, is to get everybody's input.
Right. I just can't imagine not being able to park in front of my own house. It just doesn't make any sense. Or for anybody. I mean, I don't think you would like to. I mean, sometimes you got to run in the house for 5 minutes, and you got to go all the way in the alley and park in the garage and run in the house and leave again. And, like I said, unloading stuff. And we're not getting any younger, so I don't want to have to be.
Yeah, I think that's why it was looked at, is because of the traffic for the school with the buses having to stop. And if you have kids, like you said, the home that I have across from you with the special needs student, if you have cars parked there on that side, you'd have the kids in between the cars, and there's not a good visibility when you only have one lane going down the middle. You know, you got a little bit more visibility if somebody comes out. You wouldn't have any cars parked there for a kid to come out between.
Right.
But this is why we're here. We're here for the input, and then it's a council decision once all the input is here. So we appreciate you coming down.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
Could I get your address again? Your name and address?
Anna Anderson,
And your address?
510 Walnut Street.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Anybody else like to make a comment?
I guess I would like to make one comment. I know we've had a lot of speeding problems over there, and I think that the officers, maybe we should concentrate a little bit heavier over that way on speeding, because it sounds like we have trouble on both streets in that area.
Well, I know it isn't a school street, but since Scenic Drive was fixed, that's turned into a drag strip. I mean, now that we're fixing all these roads, it's good to have the roads fixed, but all of a sudden, everybody got a heavy foot. There's something to say for potholes, slowing down traffic.
Anybody else in the audience like to make a comment? Well, we're talking about the parking at Walnut. This is a public hearing for... Anybody else? Any comments? And final time, any other comments? Any citizen on the Walnut Street parking? Council have any other comments, or?
What makes one side better than the other? I know Mark had brought up the one side.
Well, the amount of homes, I think, would be, you would want it on the opposite side because of the, like I just said, the fact that the kids, if you got a lot of cars, you're going to have a little more car action parked on that one side. If you were limiting the parking to one side, and you're going to have a lot of cars there, so you would want the parking, I would think, but that's my opinion, is on the opposite side, so you wouldn't have kids between the cars. You'd have a little more visibility. You're going to have more kids on the side with the more houses.
What's Section Street?
Section Street is parking on the west side, and the
Along with the
main
sidewalk.
reason is that you have that large section with the lake where there's no houses. So we had everything pushed over to that side for the travel lanes. So we really have, block on one end of the street and a block on the other end of the street, half a block where we have the homes, and then you got that section where there's no homes. So it was a little easier, on section, to deal with that.
And on Saginaw, why was it picked on that side?
It was
No
before my
preference?
time. I don't know. That was before my
Because the
time.
parking's on the west side of Saginaw, and nothing on the
What side is
east.
the sidewalk on Saginaw? Or is it both sides?
Both sides.
Sidewalks on both sides of no parking, I believe, is on the east side.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Otherwise, we need a motion to go back into regular session.
Make a motion, we go back in the regular session.
Support.
Mr.
Mrs.
Anderson,
Brew?
can make one other comment?
Yeah, the only question, that I have is that, I need to have feedback. You guys just take a look at it, have some more conversations, let me know how you want staff to proceed, because, we'll have in January, the packet come out for our annual Major Street Act 51 certification. So you'll have to kind of decide how you want to proceed with this. If you want us to do any more communications, just let us know.
What about the winter months? Are they allowed to park on the street at all, or is it just when it snows and the plows got to go through?
Well, no, that, you have from November 1st through March 31st, your winter snow ban, so parking ban. But then they can park on the boulevards during that time. Another thing to consider, and this will be more conversations with the residents, as we go through and fix the street. Like, we have one block in this particular project, so then we'll have two more blocks, one on either side. Maybe rather than just widening it out, work with the residents to allow them to park, come up with ways of parking in the front. That might be a way, but you still have the sidewalks for the Safe Routes program, so you still have to work around that. Those are options that you could have. Planning Commission could work on that with the resident. Again, it's all coming down to talking with the residents. Some might have good access off the alley, and some might not, and that's just an individual issue.
If it wasn't for the hill on the street next to it, then that would be the one to turn into a major street, down next to the lake.
Oh, Chestnut Street?
Chestnut.
Yeah. Well, the traffic patterns are created by the people, and both of the streets are local streets. We put Section Street into play, and the buses want to come down Walnut. We have bus parking on 4th Avenue, and, you're going to take the most convenient route as a driver. And so I think that you have to kind of follow and watch the pattern and see what people are actually comfortable doing, because we can make all the changes and people still want to park and drive where they want to park and drive. So as a traffic engineer, you have to look at the habits and the patterns, kind of work yourself. Now, you could do controls to make it less comfortable. That's why you have a width for a local street. A comment was made, and rightfully so, when you park on a local street, you park on both sides, you have one travel lane in the middle of the street. That automatically slows traffic. And that's the whole point. It's slow, on the local streets, you get all that local traffic, you're slowing the traffic.
Right.
Or if we put stop signs on the street, then that would
Stop
slow
signs.
traffic.
But on a major street, if you classify that as major, you can't put the stop sign on that street. You're going to have to put it on the avenues.
Right.
So there are some some limitations on that.
I know if I'd go there, I always go down Chestnut because it's easier to drive, there's less homes and less crowded, but apparently with the hills, you can't take
Well,
buses there in the wintertime when it's
It's challenging
icy.
in the winter, coming into the highway especially. So, and it's something that needs to be researched completely.
Well, we had a motion, a second,
I'll support it.
I have Lee and supported by Brew to enter for the public hearing.
yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Next on the agenda is approval of the Department of Public Works truck number 1 rear differential rebuild. We had 3 bids, and we're going with the lowest, recommended lowest bid. Any questions? Otherwise, you need a motion to,
I'll make a motion, we approve Interstate Power Systems be approved for the cost not to exceed $3,817.88 for the truck repair.
Support.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
yes?
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Number 9, approval of the USDA RD water project pay request. Bruce isn't here to ask any questions of. We need a motion to approve the pay request.
Yeah, the next 3 items are water, sewer, and wastewater treatment plant pay request, and I believe there might be a 4th with the road work.
Is this the end of it now, or no?
No,
No.
Project's not done.
No, but we're getting close.
getting close. On the reports, I've been breaking that cost down into the categories that we have per the RD and giving you your totals.
Ray, on the water side of it, I know last time we did a small project on some of the lines. We had purchased the pipe. I know this time it's not that way, but I seen them haul a load of pipe out of here. I'm hoping we got credit for that in the end. They hauled a load of pipe out of here, I think it was Friday. Not a full load, but several lengths of pipe and some other supplies. So we should be getting a credit back on that stuff.
I'll check into that.
Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion that we approve the invoices for the water pay project request in amount of $295,784.57.
Support.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Is there a motion to reduce the, for the sanitary sewer project pay request?
Again, I would like that checked, Ray, the same situation. They hauled a bunch of piping out of here for that side of it too.
Is there a motion to approve the pay request?
I'll make a motion, we approve the sanitary sewer project pay request in the amount of $508,271.47.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes. Next for the wastewater treatment plant pay request. Any questions? Otherwise, we need a motion.
I'll make the motion to pay $356,752.04.
Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Approval of the wastewater sewer project local share pay request. Mr. Anderson, any comments?
No, this is paying for the surface, the street portion of the job. It's under that amount that council approved and appropriated for roughly $373,000. After this pay request, it's $111,743, but then there's still work that has to be done. A little later in the agenda, we have a discussion on what we're estimating as actually remaining under budget.
And this money is coming out of which fund?
General fund.
We have a motion to approve the money for the local streets.
I make a motion, we approve pay request number 5 and number 6 to Baco for the sewer and water project in the amount of $211,644.82.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Next, approval of the Sturgeon Falls Hydro Runner Project Engineering Support. This is concerning engineering.
Yeah,
Overlook, Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, this is something that we brought up a month ago. Council declined to move forward with it at that point. Since then, I've had a couple council members ask me to bring this back forward. At the last meeting, we approved the Leaderstro proposal to handle the runner project. I think Dr. Hayes mentioned it at the last meeting that initially I did not have a strong recommendation to move forward. That was correct. But with the Leaderstro proposal, they did not complete a CFD before, we didn't have any data before, in their proposal. I think the council evaluated the Leaderstro proposal based on their recommendation, based on their experience, and based on their confidence that we would not need a restricted baffle plate on the outlet tube. There are reasons why, that makes sense, but there's other concerns from an engineering standpoint. So it is my strong recommendation that we have an independent evaluator, this Simutech, look at their calculations when they do their finally CFD calculations. Just note, and we said it at the time, that Leaderstro did not have the modeling data that NORCAN had and in order to make some of the calculations. So that information has been transferred to Leaderstro already, and they're already working on the project on that evaluation.
Ray, the original amount was $28,000, right? That we talked about?
Yes.
I thought we approved $5,000 a couple meetings ago.
That was to do the evaluation of the proposals, not for any of the CFD work.
I guess the problem that I have with this is the last meeting when we picked a company, NORCAN was $279,000 less. The manager said that both companies were good companies and he would be comfortable with either one. And when I asked him to pick one or the other, he picked NORCAN. We also had Simutech look at the project, and they had, when I asked Ray what their preference was, they said that both companies were acceptable, but if they had to pick, the preference would have been NORCAN. So we pay these people to do the engineering, and we don't even listen to what we don't even go with their recommendation. And they are doing the extensive work on the project. Ray had the most time into this project than anybody with consulting both parties, and he recommended NORCAN, and we went with the more expensive one. And the rudder possibly could be, my best guess would be over $100,000, and if that rudder needs to be put onto that bill that's already $279,000 more than the first one, than the other company, we're booking, with this engineering, we're booking almost $500,000 more than the other company. And if we pick a company to do the engineering, we should at least listen to what they have to say and go with their feelings on it. Otherwise, we're wasting our money, as far as my opinion.
Well, that was put in the motion about the baffle plate, and I said it last time, and I'm going to say it again. You are the representative that's supposed to be going to these meetings. Am I right or not? Are you on the electric utility board?
I was not notified, yes I am, but I was not notified.
You are on electric utility board. You made one meeting.
I was
And then you
notified.
came in and you tried to make a recommendation. You were not in all of them meetings, were you?
I was not in all of them. I was in some of them, but I looked through
You were in one meeting. I was in all of them.
Well, I'm happy for you that you made them all.
Yeah, well, I'm not very happy that you didn't make them, being you're the representative for the council.
I was not informed that the meeting was even on. Otherwise, I would have been here.
Trish,
On
was
the
he
electric
informed
meeting.
or not?
Of the one meeting? The one
the
meeting?
last meeting,
You
where they
were
had the-
informed the day of the meeting.
Well, the day of the meeting, yeah. I mean, but I had other obligations before the meeing. So, I mean, I didn't make the last meeting, but everything was in black and white. And if we
It's not
pick-
all black and white. You weren't there to ask the questions that we had to asking that.
If we
So,
pick an
no, it's not
engineering-
all black and white,
If we
Mark.
pick an engineering company, we should at least go with their recommendation. They are an engineering, you are not an engineer.
And neither are you. But you seem to know it all, don't you?
I'm not saying that I know
No,
it.
I think-
I'm just saying we should go by the engineering company that we hired, their recommendation.
Now we're
Well,
discussing
they were
Simutech.
recommending it because didn't Leader Strode, they didn't have some of the numbers or something like that? And they were supposed to come back or some of the,
Yeah, when we did an analysis on the failures of the runners, we brought in Norcan because Norcan is a very reputable company that has some experience in the area. It was actually at the recommendation of one of our fellow hydro operators. And so they looked at it, then they declined to do any extensive work on it from an analysis standpoint. They recommended Simutech. So Simutech came in, and that's how they did the modeling and the evaluations. And Norcan had some of that modeling information. So when we've had the proposal, they had a leg up in the modeling data. Leader Strode did not. And, when Leader Strode looked at it, and they did a very thorough evaluation of it, up to the point of providing data. So, they provided experience with low-head, Francis-style runners with these, what they call camelback,
Yeah.
the same orientation we have. They provided a number of jobs that said that, hey, we do this all the time. And that's how, we provided that information to council, and that's what you were evaluating. It's just that the Simutech, they didn't have anything to evaluate Leader Strode on because they didn't have modeling data to give them this analysis. So that's why we're recommending that Simutech be on board, because, I don't have the qualifications to analyze that kind of detail and data.
yeah.
Or do any of us?
I know, that's why I said we should listen to the engineering firm when they make their recommendations. I'm not saying
Mark,
I know.
I only made a motion and it passed, because you didn't get what you wanted, you're gonna bring it up over and over again.
No,
I'm
I'm-
not the only one, I made the motion, it was up to the rest of the council.
I'm just bringing it up to say that we should at least we should at least went with the recommendation. They're the professionals, they're the engineers. When you hire an engineering company to look over the project, you should at least go with their recommendations.
And there was nothing in writing of a recommendation, because you had the same paperwork I did.
It came from Mr. Anderson when I asked.
It was not written in our paperwork.
I
Well,
asked
we
him,
need
and
to
that's what he
decide on whether we're going to put Simutech on board for an extra $28,000 to make sure that Leader Strode has the same information, that we want the best quality product when we get done here. We made a decision last meeting. I don't think we can undo that. It wouldn't be correct at this point. So the question at this time is, do we want to go with Simutech to help with the modeling for Leader Strode to make sure that we get the best product? And Mr. Anderson has made a strong recommendation this time. Last time he did not make a strong recommendation. And I made the comment that it was like hiring a bee watcher to watch the bee watcher. But this time it seems like, since we're dealing with the engineering of a specific part of the project, I guess it's my thought we should probably go ahead with Simutech and make sure that we can have Leader Strode has the advantage of all this modeling and information. Since we can't undo it at this point, I think we'd be sued if we reversed decisions at this time. So we have to go forward. So it would be my recommendation as well to go with Simutech to help Leader Strode produce the best quality product that we can get.
I guess I think there was some heavy, on the discharge side, there was some major differences, so I think that we do need to go with them, but I'm hoping we listen to what they have to say.
Would anybody like to make a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion that the Simatech Group be approved for oversight on the computational fluid dynamics and FE analysis on the hydro runner replacement project for a price not to exceed $26,600.
28,000.
28, excuse me.
Support.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Next for the electric department, approval of pole testing pilot Empower. That was what, 30,000?
No, it's $4,500.
45.
Yeah. Yeah, that, where this comes from is, I was trying to work on putting together an RFP to get quotes, and if you remember back in the budget hearings, we have to move forward with doing some pole testing in our electric utility. Well, we did budget $30,000 for this effort. But as I was calling and working with different experts, I guess, trying to come up with a good RFP, Empower, the representatives from Empower, showed me a non-destructive testing program that they've developed over a number of years now, and it looks like a nice program. It's a non-destructive. There's no holes drilled into the poles, and one of the things they recommended was that because we do work with them on a regular basis with our GIS and with our Empower utility management program, is that maybe we'd consider a program with them on the pole testing. I do have, and I have looked at some other proposals, some other companies that have the pole testing capabilities, but they're non-destructive testing is with hammer tests, and sound test and hammer test. Empower's they have a ultrasonic piece of equipment that actually will give resonance through the pole, and it's an interesting program. So one of the ideas was, he said, well, he has to bring somebody in to do it, and that's why it's $4,500. He has to actually bring someone in and to handle this work. But it'll allow Tim and myself and some of the guys to see, and yourselves, to see if you think that this is good to use for the whole system. Also with pole testing, one of the things we want to evaluate in our asset management is which poles need to be tested. I mean, you put up new poles, they don't need to be tested. If you've got poles that you know are going to fail, you red tag them and you know that those are in the project scope. Or if you have a project coming, you don't have to test the pole. So it's also part asset management, which, so we may not need to handle the full amount that we had budgeted for pole testing. So it's up to council, but like I told Jason, that, it really needs to be approved through you guys to have them come in because of that amount. And, it's a program that I wanted you, and in fact, in December, we're going to move forward with doing some orientation where not just with Empower, but some of the other programs that we have. I want them to come in and give presentations so you understand what we're doing. We've been working with some of these groups for quite a while, and I just think that it would be good for you guys to see that.
Is this proven technology?
It is proven technology. He just had a group up in Alaska working with the utility up there that they went through and did almost our entire system. So he's been running around. They've been in Montana. They've been all over the country, working with this technology.
Is that something that you recommend that we do?
I do recommend that we try this out because if we work with the traditional method, I mean, there's you have core samples and you have other methods, and that just creates a moisture point, and it's a destructive. To me, it's a destructive testing. So I'd like to try this out on a very small scale.
Has anybody in this area tried this, Ray, like We Energies?
We Energies has used this. In fact, when I went up and checked, I was up for another meeting up in Air Mountain, and he called me up and he said, hey, we're working on this We Energy pole over by the office, come over and take a look. And that's why I ran over quickly and I checked it out. It's really a slick system. It really is.
Sounds pretty high-tech.
Yeah, it's interesting when you see them go through and you get a
If
full
it's
report.
proven and other companies are using it, do we need to spend the $4,500? Do we want to go ahead with a full program instead of just a pilot program then?
Well, you could. I was just recommending maybe we start with the pilot, so, because I haven't had a chance to really go through this with Tim. And so I'd really like to bring in 4,500 and let him also see it, and I want to make sure he's comfortable with it. So that's why I suggested doing a pilot. I mean, we can come back in December. See, we're not going to handle most of this work until next spring anyway. So I just thought, right now, let's bring in the pilot. We'll get our
So
money.
this would be for next spring.
Well, he's going to come in now, because he would schedule somebody to come in, and get this done. And so
A full project would be scheduled next spring.
next year, yeah. Next calendar year.
Is there a different standard on the height of the poles versus the high power versus the lower powers? Is the standards different?
I'm not sure if it's the standards. What you do is you deal with the height, you deal with what's on it, attachments, and you deal with the pole type and age. And they plug it all in, and it actually sends a frequency through the pole. And if it has if the core has a problem, it'll pick it up on the frequencies. So it goes from, and they talk about how deep the pole is in the ground. I mean, it's quite extensive that they put in.
So it would matter then, if they're typing it in, I'm sure it would matter then on the amount of power on the pole.
Oh, yeah, it matters on the type of pole. All of that has to go in. And we're farther ahead because we actually did an asset management program with the M-Power, and it's in that, when they come in, it's going to be quicker for them to use our program because all of our data is there. We spent money a number of years ago working and getting all of our data into that program. So they can download that into the program without typing a lot of it in.
Well, I think it's a good program because we don't want to get behind the 8 ball with changing poles.
Ray, are they still making it out of treated southern pine, these newer poles, or is it something else they're
They
using?
have treated southern pine, they have cedar, there's a number of different types of poles.
What
I think
do
we
they
normally
call
get treated southern
The
pine.
treated southern pine, I know it used to be that.
Yeah.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion, we approve M-Power to do the pole testing not to exceed $4,500.
Support.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Next is 15, local share street resurfacing. Baco is in town now, they're resurfacing. We have an extra $37,000 that haven't been spent. There's been a recommendation by Bruce to put that money aside, I guess for contingency, is that correct?
Yeah, there's some additional work that we still have left over. I mean, right now, our calculation is about 42,000, but we do have some approaches, some alley approaches, and some small work that will bite into that amount. So they're actually recommending somewhere in the range of 35,000. I was asked to price up a couple different segments, and I gave them to you in your report. One was there's 200 feet of Forest Drive just past the intersection with Pine that it wasn't reconstructed when Section Street was reconstructed in 2003, and even in the overlay in 2011, we only went to the intersection. Then when the county came in and did the micro seal, they started from the township line. So that 200 feet is basically not covered in any of the latest paving or resurfacing. So I estimated up based on our crush and shape numbers, that would be 200 feet, that would be about $7,000. But there was a request for me to price up, there's about 500 feet of Pine Drive, same thing. We did do a asphalt super patch on that a couple of years ago. The actual surface looks pretty good, but I mean, there's that old asphalt's underneath the patching, so it's just a matter of time. Our history, though, our experience with our major patching is they hold up actually pretty well, so.
I've been impressed over the years of how well they do hold up.
Yeah, but that's about $18,000, and then there was a request along Valley View coming down the hill from Summit, and that
You mean going down Valley View north?
Yeah, heading Valley View north.
From Summit.
From Summit. And for 1,300 feet, that was $39,000. You know, it's basically $30 a foot, linear foot, so you can do the math in your head for, if you want to punch it out.
$30 a linear foot, then?
Yeah.
It's my understanding.
For 24-foot wide pavement.
That in years past, it was $70 a foot?
Yeah, but the current market value right now, the asphalt is down. We're getting, you know, we have a number, but we're probably about $4 or $5 under per ton on that from a market number. So we're estimating that we're saving about $5 per linear foot.
As of this year, but the last time we paved 2 years ago, it was what, $70 to $65 a foot?
Yeah, we used an estimate of $70 per linear foot. So it had been as high as $80, but, you know, you have to look at the market and the bear of the price of crude and, you know, where the asphalt. I do know that Baco plans to keep that plant in Waseda now. They purchased another gravel, rights for another gravel pit, so they're not going to, their plan isn't really to move that out, so maybe that pricing will stick for a number of years. But that's all speculative.
And you said Valley View was not going to be made into a major street because there's lack of traffic.
Yeah, Valley View won't be made.
And of course, there's a lack of traffic because the road's in such poor condition, so who would drive down that street if you had an alternative? So it's sort of a catch-22. And I had suggested that we finish up Perney Lane from Trivers Corner out to Boundary Lane Road, but that sounds like it would be quite a bit more
expensive, yeah.
Well, there's lots of places we could spend the money, but just because we have it doesn't mean we have to spend it. Like, I believe next year, the price on the blacktop, there isn't gonna be that much difference. We can hold off on it. The only one I'd really be interested in here, and it's not that bad, is that 200 feet to Forest Drive there. But it looks bad because we've got practically new right up to it. Then you go 200 feet and it's all old, and then where the township started, it looks bad. You know, I'm sure there's other places that could use it more, like Hillcrest Drive is a perfect example, and I'm sure you all can think of a half a dozen places. Like Doc said, you can stand out on Curry Road, we can go up there, but like I said, just because we got the 42,000 doesn't mean we have to spend it. The only one I'd be interested is that 200 feet at Forest Drive.
I mean, we could investigate for next year just some micro sealing, see if the county's going to do any more of the micro sealing, and pick up that 200 feet. But you have to have a certain pavement condition in order for that to be reasonable. And I'd have to look and see if that fits then. I mean, the county obviously did the rest of the sections.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure if they followed that pavement index. I know that's one thing we evaluated very closely when we micro-sealed section.
I guess I would like to see us chop the road off by Summit and go north on Valley View. It's a disaster up there. I know there's no guarantee that the blacktop price is going to be reasonable next year, and I'm all for taking a guarantee and doing it this year. We're never going to be able to do Valley View the total length up to boundary line, because my best guess, probably $400,000 or better. And to have that chunk of change and put it on one road like that, I wouldn't think it would happen. So I'd like to see us use it and cut the road and satisfy some of the travelers up that way. Take advantage of the sure rate.
The worst part about that road is the hill closer to boundary line, and the bottom part where it's wet is where the road is in the worst shape.
But the structuring under the blacktop dock, I believe, would have to be heavily mucked out, right, Ray?
Well, we probably put a fabric in like we did on pruning, and the fabric actually has performed well in a couple other areas we've used it. So that's how we deal with those areas.
How much extra would the fabric add? We don't know the length.
I don't know the details on the extra cost. Probably similar to what we had on Perney Lane. I mean, I could pull those numbers for you, obviously.
Well, that Valley View is certainly in terrible condition. But again, the worst parts, because I travel it frequently, is the hill closer to the boundary line and the wet part on the bottom.
I'm all for fixing the roads and everything, but I think we got a lot of projects that we did this summer on the roads, and probably should get them tied up and wait till next year. That's my opinion.
Mr. Pop, do you have any opinion?
There's a lot of roads that need to get fixed. But like Lee says, just because we got the money, I don't think we have to spend it. We don't know what's going to happen coming up here.
If anybody would like to make a motion, but it doesn't sound like anything's going to pass.
Well, I guess I'm a gambling man. I'll try the motion for 1,300 feet of Valley View for a price not to exceed $39,357.
Is there a second? Motion fails due to lack of second.
I'll make a motion, we do the 200 feet of Forest Drive.
I'll support that. Just to even it off.
Mr. Pop?
No.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
No.
Dr. Hayes?
No.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Motion fails. Any other motions? Now we'll go on to NEPC support zoning amendment for QPAD for $1,800. Mr. Anderson?
This is strictly based on the conversations we're having with the Planning Commission, directive from council to have Planning Commission look at the new medical marijuana law. And the Planning Commission actually met on October 11th in special session, reviewed the planning and zoning of the possibility of citing these one of five types of facilities. The Planning Commission did approve moving forward with, there's a sample zoning ordinance amendment provided by MSU Extension, and there's a, they're going to have a public hearing on November 1st. It will be here. I believe we're going to actually have it up here in the council chambers. I'm hoping we get a good crowd to debate the issue. But we have to be able to put that ordinance in the proper format. I did ask QPAD to comment on it, and also if they give us a price on what it would cost to do that. They recommended that the ordinance be actually put into proper format within our zoning code. We could, for the purpose, I suppose for the purpose of public hearing, and I'm going to kind of throw this over to Grant, I suppose we could take what we have from that sample and just use that for a public hearing. But once we get to the council, an amendment in the zoning code is going to have to be in the format of our zoning code. It's kind of a very tedious exercise, because they're in a number of different chapters, number of different articles within the code, and so there was that option, or you could put it into its own article, but the recommendation is to put it into the proper locations within the articles you currently have. So that's a decision that both the council and the township board need to make. They meet in 3 weeks, right? 3 weeks, I think. So anyway, I put this out there just so that you could, if you want to approve it contingent on the township paying for their half, or you could say, guys, handle it, but we're probably going to do it as expeditiously as we can. Probably still have to be worked on down the road that will need some assistance in putting it into the proper format.
So
I
this
think
is-
we definitely need to put the contingency on with the township paying their share of it, 50%.
And now that I think about it, the township meets the second week of the month. I did not get a chance to talk to Don Bizek today. We probably won't have their approval of this before the public hearing, so we're probably going to just have to deal with it in a format that we're comfortable with for the public hearing. If that moves forward and it gets to the council for proper amendment of the ordinance, it is going to have to be in proper format. So you could still move it forward contingent, and then we could hold on to it until after the public hearing to see where it goes from there.
Any other discussion, or we need a motion to approve this contingent on the township paying their half?
I'll make a motion, we put in a stipulation and approve providing the council or the township representatives pay their 50% share of the $1,800 for the Norway area zoning ordinance with QPAD.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Next on the agenda is annexation of the city-owned gravel pit on Boundary Line Road. I asked Mr. Anderson to put this on. I think that we should do everything to enhance the city that we can. We pay no taxes on this to the township. The township will not be disadvantaged in any way by us annexing this in, and I think it would give us police powers over the area. Our officers are up there a lot, target practicing like a lot of the other officers in the county. And I think this should be part of the city. It only makes sense to me. There is no disadvantage to it. I plan on someday being a resident of the township, and I would not object. In fact, it only makes sense, I think. We annexed the land in over the golf course, and I never did understand why anybody would object to annexing vacant land into the city.
Ray, on the tax basis, if we annex that into the city and down the road, say 20 years, 25 years, when we're done with that area, would there have been any tax benefit for the township to hold it? I believe there would be, right?
Well, yeah, if it gets developed into something that becomes a tax base, but if the city owns it, it's still not taxed.
I realize
Right,
that.
but if we
but
sold it, it would be.
If
it
we
would go on the
sold
tax
it
roll.
once we were done graveling up there, and the new council agreed that it would be a good time to part ways with that property, the township would, if they look back, they would be losing a substantial amount of money, and I don't believe we should rock the boat with the township. I don't believe we should rock the boat with the township over this, because it's no benefit other than police protection.
Well, if you go down the road and there's development out there, then the city would get the taxes. Seems like that would be in a big, if you're talking about your scenario, then that would be a big advantage to the city. All the more reason to do it.
What about electricity too? At some point, you could run electricity out that way too.
Well, there is electricity out along that road. The city does have power along that road right now.
We
Yeah, we
take
go up
the
this
gravel
way.
out of there and make it an industrial park.
Good, it's up to the planning and council.
We could zone it anything we want, right?
Yeah, it's up to you.
We have a good working relationship with the township right now. I'd hate to see it go to heck over this.
Well, I don't see why it would. I've never, anybody in the township ever even objecting to the annexation of the golf course into the city. So again, to me, I've had people come up to me and say, well, why wouldn't you do it? It's a no-brainer. So I agree 100%. Why wouldn't the city? It's going to advantage the city. It would not disadvantage the township. So it's certainly up to the council, but...
And the township ain't getting any taxes or anything
No,
on it,
they're
so they're
getting
not gonna
absolutely
lose
nothing out
anything.
of it.
But they would be getting taxes if it was developed and they still had control. you talk about out at Marion Park, Doc, one of the major reasons why that was annexed in was the development of the property out there, but it also gave our officers the jurisdiction to patrol out at the park out there, which they didn't have that before. So that was a major concern.
Is this something we can meet with the township on? Get the feeling of them?
Can. It's up to the council.
But we don't have to make a decision right now on
No.
that.
I can tell you that based on when we go up and crush for gravel, work with the winter sand, there's going to be many, many, many years of us working up there before we run out of material. It's a very good gravel pit for us, so, I think down the road.
It's 40 acres, it's huge.
Yeah.
In our lifetimes, it's not going to be developed, I wouldn't think, unless someone basically steals it from the city and develops it. So,
Well, as far as I know, we've only had one offer on it, and that was a while back, but we decided not to sell it.
well, that's what I'm afraid of, that in the future, it might be offered, or someone does offer money, and then it's going to go to the highest bidder, and then the city will be out those taxes.
Well, we can sit here and discuss this all night. I'll make a motion that we table it.
Support.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
No,
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
No.
that's the agenda for tonight. Now we'll hear from the audience. Any comments on any topic? Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. Please list your name and address for the record. And I'd also like to add, please, if there's any profanities, the person will be asked to leave.
Neil Jutman, 410 Chestnut Street. This is due to the unsafe conditions up in your school zone. Very serious ones. Did you look at the videos? The FOIAs?
I've seen some of the videos.
Some of the videos. So you absolutely did nothing concerning safety of children in the school zone.
Well, that's up to the police department. The city,
The police department are not doing their job in Norway, Michigan. They sit in their car and watch. I have video proof. 2 council members also witnessed how this works up there, right? Firsthand. You couldn't call me back. I called you twice. The second one was, you don't stand for the citizens of Norway. You need to step down. You need to step down. Then I'll go on. This is all over the safety of kids. Politics and safety are 2 different things. Are they or are they not? What's politics? Running mouths, getting nothing done. So I got these here. That one. That one. You don't need them, you probably got it. Foils, right?
Thanks, Neil.
No problem, Mark. So, you kind of see, if you put all the FOIAs and all these police reports, right? What message am I trying to convey? Safety. You put safety first, last. Remember last time we went through this? What was the end result? The kid getting hit in the crosswalk. You were acting police chief.
This is a public comment, but this is the only time I'm going to comment. That kid jaywalked. I saw the police
Kid was in the
report.
crosswalk.
Let me finish.
Pedestrians have the right of way in the crosswalk.
He wasn't in the crosswalk. I saw the police report. He wasn't in the crosswalk. He jaywalked across the
I do
corners.
have it on video.
I do have the police report.
Remember we went?
That's all I'm going to say. You
Okay.
can say your comments.
So, what plan do you have on paper to fix this situation? Any plan? None, you're just gonna talk. The school did their job. They put out memos. What's Tinty? He's an educator, not a policeman. And them stop signs, that road, who owns that road? Come on, right? City of Norway, right? You're not enforcing the law. I have it all on video, don't I? Do I or do I not have,
Some things on video.
that I have proof your police department has failed the citizens in Norway, not protecting their children? I want you to resign. I want the police chief to resign. You see the video of him touching me at that rummage sale? Did you? That's before he went to give the second ticket for running a school bus. Guess what we got last Friday? 6th person going by an activated school bus. You're not taking your job seriously, protecting the children and the taxpayers of the city. So I call for you to either resign or be fired. If you can't fire them, give the citizens a vote. We went through it before. This ain't the Norway Dam. I don't want to hear, I'll get back to you on that. Unacceptable. So I've come up with a start of a solution, and I'll have Mr. Pop take over the rest. Can you do that for me, Scott? So I don't have to get more upset?
Go ahead.
So don't worry about profanity.
Thanks, Neil.
So I've done more than the police chief and the city manager to resolve this safety issue. And you sit there and look at me like I'm retarded. And explain open carry in Michigan. Explain it to us. Can you do that?
Talking to me.
Yeah, you're the one.
This is public comment, sir. You're making your comment.
But it's totally legal, right? Second Amendment. Michigan open carry state. Is it also a stand your ground state?
Mr. Pop, do you have any comments now, or?
I do agree that there are safety concerns up there. There is. I see it myself. But I do see the police department every morning when I leave to work, they're on patrol up there. It's hard for them. This could go both ways. It really could. I do see that something has to be done. If it's the police department, if it's the school, but something, I believe something has to be done.
And it starts with upper management, because who put the order out not to ticket people?
I don't know.
Okay, a police officer doesn't just not ticket people when he sees state traffic violations happening in front of his face. Somebody put that order out. That's why I hold him accountable, and I hold the chief that ain't here. Why ain't he here?
He doesn't normally come to these meetings.
Well, he should have came, he knew I was coming. Politics ain't gonna solve this, action is. We've got zero action, zilch. And it's all on videotape. You know, you're more than welcome to see it anytime you want, you too. They've seen some of it, not all of it. I got an hour and a half of videotape, nonstop violations, a week after the first 3 cars went by my kid's school bus. Guess how many we're up to? 6. He's been on the bus 7 times.
Well, I appreciate your concern. I think we
Well,
should
then
all
your
be
city
concerned.
manager and your chief of police should be concerned, because they should be fired. If you don't want to get rid of the manager, give the citizens a vote. Let us speak. You'd be very
Citizens do have a vote. I encourage people to run for council last spring.
If the council don't want to go together, vote. Let the citizens do it. And the cop grabbed me, another our citizens run sale before he lifted the ticket, very unacceptable. All on his dash cam, he filmed it for me for free.
Any
What do
other
you think,
citizens?
Mr. Carlson, about it?
Any-
Police officer grabbing you.
Any other
saying
citizen
You
like-
are under arrest. What's the proper procedure for asking somebody to go in and give a statement? There are policies and
Thank you. Is there any other citizen have a comment? Anybody else like to make some comment? I appreciate your concern. Mr. Menegini, any?
No, not on that.
so it's time for change. I really want you.
Well, the
to step
citizens
up.
this is council comment.
You never even called me back about your concern. And then
I
I want to get
evaluated
rid
it.
of this, man,
And-
on Thursday.
Next meeting is my last meeting, so,
Well, yeah, I was told that you don't care, so, yeah, I called to get you the floor.
Mr. Menegini, please,
On
your
Thursday.
comment time is done,
Nobody
please.
even called me back. Why, Ray? Why did nobody
Because
call
you
me
act
back?
like a crazy person on the
I was willing to
phone.
pay to have it done. 12 discs.
I'll answer you why I didn't call you back, because my wife told me there was a crazy man on the phone. I think you need to learn to act more civil to people. We try to get along here. I appreciate your
And I
concern.
thank your wife for wood chips she bought for the city because they couldn't afford it for Strawberry
She's
Lane.
very concerned, but she advised me not to call you
Nuts,
back.
although pissed, because I've been through this before with Ray and the chief. Before, and the kid got hit in the crosswalk. He wasn't jaywalking. A pedestrian has the right of way in a school zone. So he wasn't, the kid driving the car in the crosswalk, but the kid walking was at fault.
It's 5 minutes.
No,
Your time's up, okay.
that's my 5 minutes.
I'll answer why I didn't call you back.
He got the same message you got. He called me back.
Can I explain? I'll tell you why. The incendiary comments that you made about me and other members of this council, and the right to carry your gun,
I do.
I'm gonna go, I'm a Second Amendment man.
Okay.
I'm gonna go and see you after I get a message like that on my
You're
phone?
done if you're scared. I can brandish my- Wear yours too.
Okay, Mr. McGinney, his time is up. Did you have any council comments on any?
Yeah, I got council comments. I see that the Norway Bike Trail, they started on it, they got about a quarter mile done out there, and I went out there and checked it out, and we got 2 nice little garbage piles out there. Some of it looks like it might have been an old stove or somebody that they dumped out there, so maybe in the spring, Ray, make a note of that we can get some of our summer help out there to clean that mess up. And big congratulations to Pat and Kathy LeBeau for their annual Haunt on the Hill. They started Friday, the 13th, which was very nice to start it on that day. And they're gonna have it again starting on the 20th. Last year, I guess they had like 1,500 visitors. It's really nice if you got nothing better to do, take a little walk up there. And on a lighter note, I don't know how I could possibly miss this, but at the last council meeting, October 2nd, that was National Pizza Month, and I missed that. And I'm sorry. That's all I have.
Mr. Bobolani?
I got a couple things, Ray. I'm hoping that with all the talk that's been here tonight and some of the residents on the Walnut Street side, that we do get some pretty extensive patrolling up by the school so we can nip some of this and get it squared away. The TV guide, I got a call on the TV guide on the TV channel. It's not even close to correct, so I don't know what we got to do to get that corrected. Wondering how we're doing on the Vulcan LED streetlight install. I haven't heard anything lately.
It's scheduled, but it's out on the schedule.
There's a streetlight out on 577 by the railroad tracks there too, in Vulcan. The Langen trailer deal, I seen you had that in the manager comments. I would like to see us make some sort of a decision on getting that out of there. I think it's a bad move to put it out there as a free old house trailer, because I would hate to see it show up 2 blocks away, because it's undesirable. And insurance-wise, if somebody got hurt moving it, I know the tongue has been cut off of it, so I would like to see a contractor just go in and remove it. Wondering how we're doing on the equipment purchase for the wastewater, if we're getting close so we can make a decision if we're going to do anything on that situation. And I would also like to see us reevaluate if we're looking at pickup trucks and maybe picked up a used dump truck that's in pretty nice shape. I knew they had a decent one that was up at, in Quinnesec, rather than getting more pickup trucks. We need to focus on getting some of the dump trucks. I know there's a big price difference, but maybe we can pick up a decent used one.
Well, I'm waiting on, we have to get the budget numbers back from Bruce, so I'm waiting on that for the wastewater plant specifically. On the water side, I asked Rick to give his recommendation on what he thinks with the equipment we have.
Okay. I'm hoping that we
So
get that
that's on proceed.
evaluation fairly soon, and maybe we could go towards a used dump truck if the dump trucks seem to be in disarray. We seem to be spending money on them every other meeting, substantial amount. And I'm happy to see that the lawn blight deal has been moved around. The contracts have been moved around a little bit and let other residents that are licensed in that area get some business out of that. That's all I have.
Ms. Brew?
I just want to say I share Mr. Jutenen's concerns, and we are working on that in trying to catch the kids, or not, I shouldn't even say kids, people passing the bus and not stopping for the four-way stop. And then also, to go back to the remark from Mark about the bid being higher, also you got to remember when you looked at that bid, Mark, that you have to look that we won't be spending as much on Myron Construction with this company. That's all I have.
I also got to express Mr. Jutenen's concern, especially with school bus safety. That's, when kids are involved, that's not good. So something does have to be looked into. But other than that, I have no other comments.
Well, I plan on reading the papers that were given us tonight to look at. We could maybe discuss them further at the next meeting. I think we all agree that kids' safety is paramount. But I would caution Mr. Jutman to be a good human being, a good individual to others. You get more with honey than you do with vinegar, they say. I also like to comment on the trucks running. If it's running 45 minutes, I guess we know it's going to cost money to run the truck for 45 minutes because that much fuel is going out in the air, but we don't know that we're going to spend that money on repair work because we started it up sooner. So I'm certainly not a mechanic, but it doesn't make any sense to me that we leave a truck run 45 minutes from your comments. And I agree with Mr. Babalani that a dump truck is a lot more handy than a regular pickup truck. I have one myself, and it's certainly a lot easier to unload than a regular pickup. Again, I'd like to say it makes only common sense that we annex vacant property into the city. I guess I still don't understand why there's any hesitation. Anybody over there like to make any comments? Mr. Anderson?
The only comment I'll make is that, based on the citizen comments, that's what he has. He has, it's time to make comments. The facts that he's before you, take what he says as fact. The facts are not straight. So in those conversations, in those dealings, he never contacted, me for comment on the current issues. 8 years ago, that issue, he did come in and we looked at it, and what we told him was that was the courts that were telling us about, and his issue was with stops. That was the courts telling us. That wasn't me or the chief at the time especially, or the current chief, saying to our officers, don't write a ticket. That's actually the prosecutor in the courts. So we don't make those decisions on when you write and when you don't write. There's a standard by which you write those. So there's a lot of facts that seem to be missed in this whole dialogue. Again, I don't think it's my place to argue with him back and forth in this situation. So that's all I have to say.
So having the police officers sit there.
Do you have any comments?
Not at this time, no, thank you.
Do we have a motion to be adjourned?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Support.
Roll call.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.